Hi everyone, my name is Chrysteannah Williams and I am from Teenage Mental Love, and today I'm here with Anna and we're going to be talking all about mental health, her music, how social media and the digital age has changed throughout the years, and I'm so excited to have Anna here today, and I really hope you all enjoy this interview. Anna has been creating music for so many years, and her music is absolutely inspiring to me and so many others. And I'm going to say a little bit about Teenage Mental Love. It's a site that I started because I just saw how much mental health was affecting teenagers, children, and adults, everyone of all ages. And I really wanted to start something that would really make people feel that they're heard and make them feel that they're not alone through all of this. And thank you so very much. And again, I hope you enjoy this interview, and we're going to be jumping right into it. Yes, so Anna, the first question I wanted to ask is, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I mean, if you want to know the truth, I'm actually, speaking of mental health, nervous. I'm nervous about this. I've done a, a lot of interviews in my life, but nothing quite like this. That's very vulnerable. Makes me very vulnerable. So I was up late last night and I thought about it and I took notes but yeah, this is a big deal what you're doing, which actually says a lot because my writing and my whole career has been sharing with people, and yet I can kind of hide behind a metaphor. So yeah, how I'm doing right now is overall really well. I'm happy. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, I completely understand, and that's totally fine. I totally understand, and thank you so much for talking about vulnerability. And I know that sometimes when creating music, it's like stripping down the walls,
Yeah.
and like going deeper within yourself. But sometimes when you go into an interview to talk about the music, it's almost surface level, and you never talk about like the process behind it, or all the hours in the studio, or all the time and heart that was spent in your music. So I'm again so happy to have you here. And I wanted to also ask, what has your mental health journey been like throughout these years, from your, hit single Breathe and so much more, and everything that you've been through?
Wow. I'm 36, so it's been quite a journey for my mental health has gone on quite a journey. And it started when I was 10. I recognized that I had depression. I noticed that I had depression at about 10 years old, and music did help with that because I had a lot to say, or I was feeling a lot and didn't really know how to express it because I didn't recognize that it was depression. I just used to describe to my friends that I felt like there was a hand squeezing my heart all the time, and the way that music helped was that there were other artists who had written songs, and if their melodies touched me, I could write my own lyrics over top of them and sort of just say the truth, tell the truth about what I was feeling. Never share them with anybody. I was so scared of what people might think, but that was very cathartic. And it wasn't until I was about maybe 14 that my family acknowledged that there was something wrong. I went to a therapist and started taking medication for the first time. And that journey, that's so hard for anybody who has ever, gone that route and taken a medication. The first one usually isn't the right one. So, there's this whole process of trial and error, and sometimes you have to get all the way off of one to get onto the other one, and it's really hard. So that, I think when I was in high school, I was just thinking about this morning because I know you're asking me about how my music helped me, but it was other people's music that really helped me. I have this playlist that, just a bunch of songs that I've been influenced by, and I was playing it last night. And those songs made me feel better because they said what I was feeling. I didn't have the words, but somebody else did. And so not only did that mean that I wasn't alone, but it meant there were words for what I was feeling,
Yes.
that it wasn't just in my head. So in writing music, I try to do the same thing. Breathe is the one that everybody knows, and that was meant to console myself and my friends in a time when, that I was 17. So 17, 18 years old, you're still so young that you think with a teenage brain, but you're old enough that your choices have adult consequences, real life consequences. That's a hard transition. And, I just wanted people to feel better. I did have a friend who was in the Army. I did have a friend who had an abortion, and people have always thought that was about me. It wasn't, although I did have that experience later in my life, and it was very traumatic and ironic, because I had, I already had the song to console myself. My 17-year-old self showed up for me in that time. But that song, as it applied to me, was mostly just that I had this premonition that the music that I'd been writing for, at that point, 7 years, would be something that wouldn't only belong to me, and that was my safe place. So it was my breathe, my breathe, just breathe was that I knew that my safe zone would become other people's, and then where would mine be? And yet I felt a responsibility. If I had those things to say, if I was feeling them, then probably other people were too. So I found myself willing to give up my zone in order to help others heal. And then that became my mission. So the rest of my story is that obviously throughout those years of when I was getting the most attention, it was like being in a whirlwind. I mean, luckily I had a band with me who they have explained to me what happened, because there's a lot of it that I don't even remember. Yeah. But, I made the choice to leave the record label, which I'm sure we'll get into. And it left me with like an existential crisis. And also by that time I was 25 or 26, and my body chemistry had changed, and my hormones had changed, and the medication that had sort of helped me wasn't anymore. And it really wasn't even the right diagnosis. And so that was more trial and error. And then wanting to not have to be on medication, and sort of fighting the fact that I wasn't okay, and not really acknowledging why. I don't think it was until my probably late 20s, early 30s that I really felt okay, and also comfortable trusting my intuition, so that I would stop running into situations where I knew something was wrong, and made myself sick because I didn't trust myself.
Yes.
So.
I completely understand. And I was even going to ask also, through that, process with, going on medication, especially for depression, and still managing with your everyday life and keeping up with so much that's going on, especially towards the end of high school, where things can get really stressful, and how you're saying, choices that you make have adult decisions or like adult consequences. However, you're still a teenager, you're still a child. How did you battle that? As I know, with music, of course, and was there anything else that you did, especially to, put your mind at a safe space, especially during the time?
That's an interesting question. I was in bands, so I had allies who maybe didn't understand entirely my situation, but they were there to help me express it.
Yes.
I mean, having a support system is everything. Yeah. I actually flipped high schools back and forth. So I was freshman and junior year at an all-girls Catholic prep school. Wow. got kicked out of. And so I actually, sophomore and senior year, I went to the public school and graduated from there. So that in and of itself was hard, because people change in high school a lot in 1 year. So I would leave and then come back, and the people that I had hung out with before were hanging out with different people. And it was like, I thought I'd go back to my group, but they weren't there. It's funny to think about all this stuff, because I really haven't in a very long time. But what did I do to cope? I wrote. That really was everything then. I mean, since then, obviously, I found a lot better or more effective and just more ways to cope. But then really music was everything. That I could take something that hurt and turn it into something beautiful, give it away, and make other people able to heal themselves too.
Definitely. Yes, of course. And how does it feel, for example, when you're on tour and when you're, singing to people and you're standing on stage and you're singing to a group of people and they're singing the music back with you? What is that feeling like? Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not a very religious person at all, but that's the closest thing. That feeling, those moments, that's the closest I ever feel to what I think God is that it's all of us, and it's all of us connected. And I feel really lucky that I get to be the vessel for that. I'm the reason that everybody is in that room, but I'm not the reason why they choose to connect with each other. They need it. So a song, a whole set, whatever it is, might make them look from left to right and realize that everybody else is feeling the same thing they are, maybe for different reasons, but that the connectivity is so strong. And in music, it's all vibration and frequencies, and there is something very powerful about that. I don't really know exactly how it works, but I know that to look out on a group of strangers, many or only a few, yes, an arena or a little house party, and see them unite and for a little while not fear otherness is so powerful.
Yes, and I know especially during a time like this, a lot of people want to go back to that so badly. And yeah, and with COVID and everything, it's like a feeling of isolation sometimes, because especially even talking through a screen right now, once we move on to tomorrow or another day, we're all on our own again, and we don't really. Yes, and we don't know each other's paths or what we went through 5 minutes ago, or so I find that absolutely interesting.
Yes, you're so right. This time has been really hard for everybody, and for different reasons. I mean, so much more happened than just us being isolated. I mean, for better or worse, but ultimately probably for the better, it blew the lid off of a lot of problems that we were having. I mean, I'm speaking just for the United States, but the the otherness. I mean, we found it in racism and in people who are at different economic places, and how badly we have failed at protecting each other. That all comes up when we're all struggling with the same thing. And then we look at others and realize that the struggle is a little bit different for everybody else. And what have we been doing if we haven't been protecting each other? And, that I think ultimately will be a really good thing that COVID has brought that to everyone's attention. We had a leader that created, divisiveness, and you really got to look at how bad it can be if we don't love each other, take care of each other. And this, like you say, through a screen, I've had that feeling in the last year, making friends and getting to know somebody, but not being able to just touch them, to hug them or hold their hand when they say something vulnerable it hurts.
Yes, of course.
But we're not in it alone.
Yes.
So actually, excuse me, technology has been amazing for that, because at least we can see each other. At least we can call each other. The last time this happened, 1919, what did they do? Write a letter?
So
have to wait for weeks for a response or not if their family member hadn't survived something or had been sick? I mean, we're so lucky that we had that.
That is so true. Definitely, of course. And I completely agree. And it's so crazy how many things have changed from 1919, moreover, like 2000, the year 2000. So, yes, I find that absolutely intriguing. And I wanted to also ask you, through challenges and through your life, has there been anyone who has been like your biggest supporter or who has always been by your side through all of this?
This is maybe the hardest interview I've ever done. My mom has been by my side every step of the way. And as I'm sure a lot of people who see this will be able to relate to, there are times when you think you're crazy because no one else is feeling what you're feeling. Everybody else seems fine. Why am I so sad? Or why can't I smile with everybody else? Why am I anxious when I know everything's fine, but I feel like I'm literally going to die and I don't get it. I don't know. And so there were people that the most important thing they did was just not make me feel like there was something wrong with me. There was something wrong with my chemicals, or there were life situations that I needed to address, experiences that I needed to come to terms with. But they didn't make me feel like there was anything wrong with me. So one of those people was my mom, and is still, even though I just kicked her out of the house. And another is he was a priest actually at my parents' church, and he, again, I'm not very religious, but that was the beauty of our relationship, is that we were on WhatsApp all the time. He's from Kenya. He was, and he came here to work as a priest for a little while, and then ended up going home after, he was here for a long time. I don't exactly know how many years, but he would come back and visit, and we would have these beautiful spiritual talks where we related, even though we came from very different places. But the common thread was that we wanted to earn our keep in this world by protecting humanity, protecting each other, and loving each other. And the reason it's hard to talk about is that he did get COVID and pass away only a couple weeks ago. Wow. And that's a major loss, because that was somebody who I met when I was 15. I felt out of place because I was a teenager with anxiety and depression, and I felt like nobody understood me. And he felt misunderstood too, because his accent was so thick. It's Swahili with the Queen's English flair. So we connected in that way, and I'm eternally grateful for who he was in my life, because again, he talked to me. He spoke to me on that level that I think is what hurts a lot of times. For people who are very sensitive, it's not quite on this plane, there's a part that's connected that hurts, and he spoke to me on that level as if that part of me was not broken.
Yes.
And that was life-changing.
Wow, that's amazing, and I completely understand. And that just shows, like how with time, or even something like this pandemic, lives can be changed and things can be flipped in an instant. And I'm so sorry for your loss. And
Thank you.
yeah, of course. But that is an amazing story.
I think the most consoling thing I can do for myself is to remember that he had a mission, and that that I can help carry that on. I know what it was. I know what he was trying to accomplish, and it on the outside would appear that it was just protecting his village, but his vision was universal. Yeah. And so I do have a part of him in me, and his influence definitely was part of what shaped my priorities as a artist, as a famous person, that I was a public servant, not a celebrity, not even just an artist, but it was my job to serve humanity. And I can do that without singing or writing.
Definitely.
That's in me.
Of course, and that's amazing. And I feel like that's one of the greatest gifts that anyone can learn or tell someone or feel too. And that's amazing. And I also wanted to ask you now more into like your music and your accomplishments, and also maybe even like some things that you had to battle while doing your music. So I wanted to ask you more about your label and what was that journey like and that process like for you when you created your songs and your albums and all of that. What was the journey?
Well, the creation part of it was easy. I actually, when I signed with Sony, it was already done. The album was already finished because I worked with the guys from Blind Melon and another fella who had produced Tori Amos, and these were all people that were 20 years older than me, but that were my influences, and they believed in me. There wasn't necessarily going to be any money involved. They didn't know. They just liked my music and they liked me, so we made an album. And so coming to Sony, I was a package deal. I know that there are interviews out there where I talked about what that was like to be at a major label, and truly my feelings are not those of a label hater, but I do think that the trouble, the difficulty that a lot of artists run into is that the music business, it's like an oxymoron. That's it's two different businesses. There's the business of music, and then there's the business of business. And a business, their job is to make money. Of course. That's it. So I think when you introduce a sensitive, creative person, which probably most artists are, to an environment that is supposed to be working toward profit, it conflicts. Yeah. And it did for me. And the reason it did for me was that I did come in as a package deal. I already had all the songs written. And also at the time that I was there, digital happened. I was probably 24 or 25. And the labels weren't ready for it. They were unprepared to not be relevant in many ways because we didn't need physical product anymore. Yeah. So they were scrambling. They were scared. There were a lot of people that at the time I looked at like, you monster, but they were afraid they would lose their jobs, therefore their houses and their abilities to take care of their kids. So I don't see monsters anymore. What I see are very frightened people who thought they had stability that was suddenly a rug was pulled out from underneath their feet. My journey with that was that while they were scrambling to do anything they could to make money, I was asked to do things that weren't honest for me, that weren't right for me, because that would have been what would make a profit. And I tried for a little while to be whatever it was they wanted me to be, but I couldn't do it. And it caused me to have an existential crisis, truly, I didn't know who I was or what my purpose was, because I had believed in it being that I was serving others, and then suddenly it was, you need to write the next, summer pool party hit.
Yes.
I don't. It was till that whatever, like the videos where it's like, then the hot guy takes off his shirt and jumps in the pool and out of red cups. I mean, what there's nothing, there is and never has been anything about me that fits that. Yes. So I didn't know who I was. I didn't, and when we talk about the label, there are those struggles of, this is who you need to be, this is how you need to look. And I think we kind of go in expecting that that's going to happen. I have to say, what's really damaging isn't the label so much as fame. Yeah. Fame is a big fat lie. And, it can convince you of your worth. Other people tell you what your worth is. Other people tell you that you're great or not. Nice. I never read reviews, so I didn't know, but the response to me was always positive. I didn't really have a lot of people that hated me. If I did, they didn't tell me, and I hope they don't. But there is a danger there of believing that that's your worth, which then means eventually you leave the label, as I did. I went independent before indie was a thing, and out for myself, and lost the attention that I had, because by all accounts, if you looked at social or looked at the internet at that time, it was Anna quit. So people thought I quit. And then I felt like, oh my God, the person that I've been, who am I? I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter. I'm a performer. I had to lean really hard on, I'm a giver, I'm a lover, I'm a healer, I'm a good person, hopefully. It didn't have all those other things. But the danger for people who do believe it, no one stays famous forever. No one stays beautiful forever. Yeah. I mean, in the way that people want you to stay, young and I don't know. But, eventually all of us are, achy and really just need a family member to take care of us. And those who spend a lifetime believing their own hype don't end well, because there's a void there. They never decide that their worth is something that can't be taken away from them. I could lose my hands, I can't play guitar. I could lose my voice, I can't sing. But what are those things about you that you can't lose, that can't be taken away from you? And for those who believe the hype, they don't search for what that thing is. There's a black hole inside of them that they end up having to fill with drugs or, stuff. Mm-hmm. And it just sucks right in, and there's still a big empty hole. And you end up pushing friends away and pushing sometimes even opportunities away. You push family away and you're alone. And then eventually, when people have forgotten your song or your show or whatever, you're by yourself and you feel like you've lost relevance. And that hurts, to feel like you don't have a purpose. So that's why I think fame is really, it's a big fucking lie. Oh, sorry. And it's important, I would say. I mean, since we're talking about the business, and I would assume maybe there are people out, in your audience who are considering having this kind of lifestyle, that you're so much bigger than you can be the biggest, most famous artist on the planet, and that isn't your worth. It just is not.
Of course. And that is so true. And from what you said, I agree with all of it, from the part about, hate and not reading reviews. And I feel like, especially kind of with like social media today, I feel like it's like right in front of your face. Like, I don't know if you heard about like TikTok stars, because it just shows that every single, generation or every single period that we're in or phase of life, there's someone who's always going to be another relevant star.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because yes, exactly.
Yeah, I have a poetry account that's linked from my main Instagram account. A poem about that is that talks about like paintings on the diner wall, that those people like Elvis Presley and Marilyn Monroe, and it's like, wow, they're like forever stars, but eventually it won't be them.
Of course.
And I think, you know, is that your goal? Wouldn't they have chosen something different? Wouldn't they have chosen to not be beautiful forever and land on a diner wall in exchange for having lived, having not died tragically?
That's so true.
Wouldn't they exchange that? And eventually they'll go away, and it'll be today's icons will be on the wall a couple generations from now.
So true.
Everyone goes away, and like I said, there in that poem, I don't remember how I phrased it, but I was like, well, you know, who Franz Liszt is. You don't. But there was a time when he, a composer, it was like Beatlemania for him. That's why there's a song that came out years ago called Listomania. Yeah. And that's what it's about. Because everybody loved him. Women would throw their, I don't know, corsets, pantaloons on the stage. And they were obsessed with him. We don't know who he is now. So that kind of like, what is your relevance? Who cares? It's got to be a legacy that is, I would say, a ripple effect. If I'm good to you, if I love you, we have a good interview. We walk away from this and we take that energy with us to whoever we talk to next. And then they take it with them. That lives forever. Definitely. My song will be forgotten. But that, even if you don't know it came from me, little tiny bit of love that got passed on and on and on and on forever. That's bigger than a song.
Of course. And that just proves so much. And just what you said, you know, we look maybe 70 years ago, yes, Elvis Presley was, you know, the person who was at the top of the charts, or however they say it, but now it's Cardi B or it's someone else, and as we go down the road, it's just going to be someone else all the time. So, you know, how much is that really, you know, it's creating an impact, but how long will that impact stay? And I feel just like you said, like, you know, passing on love and kindness, that lasts for a lifetime. So I found that amazing. Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes, I found that absolutely amazing. And I wanted to also ask you, do you think that, or do you believe personally that a part of your personal growth was, you know, realizing that, you know, even though it was something that was maybe traumatic or not what you expected or not what you hoped, but you don't see them as monsters anymore. Is that a part of your personal growth?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's part of understanding humanity better.
Of course.
I have a friend who tells me that I'm the only person that he knows who sympathizes with Donald Trump. I don't like him. I didn't like him at all. He hurt people. But I can't help but think he wasn't born that way. He wasn't born to hurt people. Somebody did something to him. And they did. If you go back and read about his history, he was treated very badly by his parents, that his father told him that if you're not on top, if you're not the best, you're nothing, you're worthless. Imagine growing up with that. You are going to strive to have the highest position. Doesn't mean you know what to do with it. Doesn't mean you know how to be good at it. Doesn't mean you deserve it. You just want it because otherwise you'll have to face the fact that your head tells you you're worthless. Yeah. And he was a troubled, really terrible president and a really unkind, and that's putting it lightly, person. Mm-hmm. But there's a cycle there. Somebody who was like he is now was like that and did that to him. So I say, just because there's a reason doesn't mean there's an excuse, but part of my personal growth that has really helped me cope with trauma or pain I felt from other people is to see their humanity no matter what.
Of course, of course.
That doesn't mean I have to like them or hang out with them, no.
Definitely. Of course, and just like you were saying from Donald Trump, or people who have passed away, but they were stars. How at the end of the day, something led up to that. And I know there are probably conspiracy theories or whatever has been happening, but it was always someone said something or did something, and then that created an effect on their life. And it just also shows how much words do truly matter, and how much they hurt, and how they can affect someone for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yes. And I wanted to thank you. And I want to also ask you, do you believe that everything that has happened in your life happened for a reason and was a part of your journey to share? Or what is your personal opinion on that?
I've never really thought in terms of like things being fate being a thing. I guess I kind of just feel like things happen the way they do, and it's a matter of making choices. I don't feel like there's anybody moving me around like a chess piece. But I do know that I can use whatever has happened to me to decide there's a purpose for it. Decide that it didn't happen for nothing. I can decide that my pain will be beautiful. That my hurt will help. I'm afraid sometimes I force it on people too, because I can't live with seeing somebody hurting, or especially if somebody has lived any version of what I've struggled with. I can't let them fall. So I guess maybe that's me creating a purpose for it. But yeah, as far as fate goes, or those, I really don't know, because there have been times that just feel just a little too weird and a little too magical. So that kind of hits my science brain and throws it for a loop. So I don't know. I didn't write this story.
No, of course, I completely understand. And that really, it kind of opens up your eyes sometimes. But that's really nice, though, that you see it that way. And I completely understand what you mean. And I wanted to also ask, through your journey, growing up, outside of music, what has your life been, also creating music after you left your label and being an independent artist and so much more. Outside of music, what has your life entailed? Like, what really, what was your path?
I mean, it was busy and involved. I had a lot. I mean, I grew up. That's a lot of it, which people didn't seem to like very much. They wanted me to stay they're like a teenage guru or therapist or something. But there were times I felt like a total hypocrite for telling everybody that everything's going to be okay when I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. I didn't think things would be okay. I got married. I got divorced. I moved. I traveled a lot. I traveled on my own a lot, which was wonderful, because that time to just reflect and soul search was amazing. Wrote a ton, made some albums out of them independently, and other things that I just keep for myself that I don't know if I'll ever share, that are just my special stuff. Dated the wrong person over and over and over and over again in different forms. And then, learned my lesson and recognized that I need to have a boundary. I think maybe the the biggest evolution in all of that. I mean, the play-by-play really isn't that interesting, but what grew from it wasn't until I was 25 maybe, that I met somebody who told me, you're very intuitive. And I was like, what? I didn't know what that was. I'd never heard the word intuition before. But it changed my life because it made me start thinking about what that is. And then I was really embarrassed to ever say that I have that or that I feel anything, because it's one of those things that people can tell you you're making up. That was part of my story as a little kid too, is that I would notice that things weren't right. I would notice that things didn't feel good, that something needed to be changed. But while children and young adults have still access to that intuition, I call it my spidey sense, but like that, almost like animal instinct kind of awareness, adults can lose that, and denial becomes such a big thing for people who are really scared to face their demons. And it's usually the kid the loud kid that gets in trouble, that gets blamed for everything, is usually just the one who is acting out or saying what everybody else is feeling. And I would say for parents who pay attention to this kind of thing, if your child tells you they feel something, they notice something, even if it's not something you really want to admit, you can't tell them that they're wrong. Because if you're a sensitive little bird, have depression, anxiety, and part of it is because of your surroundings, and then you bring it up to try and make yourself feel better, trying to make the situation feel better, and you're told you're crazy, oh man, I mean, that just makes things exponentially worse. So I don't know how we got on that subject. Oh yeah. So I think as the years went on, I learned what my intuition is. I learned that I ignored it for a really long time, hence chose the wrong crowd again and again, because I wasn't listening to it. And it's funny because it's not acknowledged as a sixth sense, and yet everybody has it. You maybe ignore it, or you forget that you have it. You don't let it evolve into anything. But like, I don't understand why, if like, and this was the last time that I was in a relationship that was like, this is not, I've done this before and this is really bad. I started thinking to myself, if I saw a fire in the corner of the room, I would say, look, fire. And if I could hear a fire crackling in the corner of the room, I would say, I hear fire. And if I smelled it, I would say, I smell smoke, there's a fire. And yet when I sense a fire, I say, but maybe it's not. Yeah. Maybe it's not a fire. That could be a fire. Like, it's got to be something else. Yeah. I'll just make up what it is. Why do we do that? It's insane. That's what's crazy. Having intuition, that's not crazy. That's a sense. That's a sense that we just haven't been told in kindergarten is one of the ones we can count on our fingers. There are more. And I do think that's something that more people need to pay attention to, and especially people who struggle with anxiety and depression. You're probably feeling something, struggling with something that everybody else is telling you isn't there, or that you shouldn't be worried about it, don't worry about it, or why are you so sad, or like everything's fine, you'll get over it. And it isn't always just a chemical imbalance that you were born with. A lot of times it's something that happened, or a life that happened while your little brain was developing. Something taught you that you needed to protect yourself. Hence, for a lot of us, that intuition gets really strong because we need it. Definitely. I don't believe in telling anybody that they're wrong and to trust that. Yes. Especially when it can not only protect yourself, but it's from that springs empathy, because you can see into a person. So you can sympathize with Donald Trump, or you can see the most beautiful, strong, thoughtful, kind, wonderful person just underneath their pain. And you can tell that it's a kind of pain that will go away.
So true.
Or you can see somebody whose damage isn't something that they want to try to work on, and you need to walk away. So very powerful. Yeah. Makes you love better yourself and others.
Yes, and I agree with everything that you said, and that is really powerful. And I was going to say also, from what you said about children, and I feel like what you say, especially to a child or any human being, but especially a child growing and developing, they take those things with them for the rest of their life, and it's like they never forget. You hold on to those things, and
yeah. Sorry, yeah, you're so right. Yes.
Yes, and I was just going to say, it can, really be detrimental in the future, and it's something that you grew up with, and even when you were talking about seeing the fire in the corner of the room, sometimes I say almost the same thing, but I say, like, if I see a red flag, what is stopping me from halting where I am and just saying, oh, maybe instead of saying, oh, maybe, oh, no, nothing is wrong with it. So I feel like it's almost the same thing, like you said about the fire, and I feel like it's almost, human or like human decency. You want to see the best in people, but sometimes it's not the best way to go.
It is empathy biting you in the ass.
Yeah, definitely.
Because, and that's why I say letting that part of yourself evolve, that intuition evolve, and that empathy turning into a superpower, something that you can also use to guard yourself, to protect yourself, means, yes, like you do have a beautiful sight that means that you can look at a person who's in a lot of pain and see that, underneath all of that, there is a really special person. But it all does come down to, do they want to help themselves? And some don't, and you can't do it for them, and you can't make them do it. And you can't always love someone into fixing them. You can't. They have to fix themselves. So having that spidey sense is really useful in those situations too, because as much as it hurts, as much as you might love someone or an establishment, whatever it is, if you can see that underneath it all, it's beautiful, but what's on top is a toxicity that will not change, and that red flag is popped up again and again, no matter how much you love him, her, them, that's where that boundary comes into place, and you have to decide what's more important, that I keep on being what I think is a good person and loving this person in spite of, or making it possible that I can love many more people, including them, from behind this, where my heart is protected, so it can go where it belongs, with people who will cherish it. And from that place, that gets stronger. You can look back on those hurting people and love them, pray for them from far away, instead of allowing them to suck out all the good parts of yourself, which unfortunately some do. So yeah, intuition, empathy, really important. And I'm so stoked actually that it's something that people are talking about now, because I've been talking about empathy and universal love and oneness on stage, and I'm a singer, so it's like, you're a songwriter and you say shit like that because you're romantic and I don't know what, flighty, but it's so true and it's so real, and I see it on stage every night. So the fact that now I'm hearing my president say it, and I'm hearing my poet laureate say it, and using those terms, empathy, the fact that that's getting used in a wider audience is so exciting to me. And I know that you were asking me about social media, and I think that is part of it. I had a weird relationship with social media at the beginning, because what was the first thing? MySpace. When that first came out, my label ran it. And then I left my label, and that was all I had to communicate with people. And I sucked at it, and I didn't like it, and I felt exposed. And then I, eventually sort of got my bearings with it. And now I realize it's a way to communicate. Yeah. I know that no one's going to like my posts about, human rights as much as they'll like a picture of my face. But that's because people are scrolling looking for something to distract them, and, they don't want to have to read something painful, because they're there to not have to feel their own pain.
Definitely.
I get it, but it's still a way to share information. And what I really appreciate is that there's a whole generation that's coming up younger than me, because I remember the days before, not for very long, but I remember the days before social media. Just after me, I guess, like Eliza Schlesinger calls us an elder millennial. The younger millennials, and particularly Gen Z, who is my favorite generation of all the generations I've gotten to know in my life so far, their empathy is on 11. And I think a lot of it has to do with social media, because there are young people out there who have never known a time when they couldn't click a button and understand the plight of somebody else. You can see what it's like to be, to have Tourette's, for example, or to not be able to pay your bills, or to have what somebody else would decide is a disability, or you understand, you maybe don't live in a place where it's acceptable to be a gay person or a trans person, which weirdly those cities still exist, those places still exist. But there are kids who can push a button and see what that looks like in real life, what they struggle with, how they love themselves or how they don't love themselves. And that creates empathy. Otherwise we can ask, but we don't always feel comfortable asking. I love that, especially with TikTok, which although I don't use it. I love what TikTok does for destigmatizing things, because my friends all have TikTok, and so they send me things that they see on there that they know I'll think is funny. And I love that there are just not the TikTok celebrities, but just people who go on there and talk about like the most embarrassing stuff that to me, I'm like, I don't think I could ever tell somebody that, but somebody goes on there and talks about like, I think I might still be a little shy about this stuff, but it's like, they talk about the first time they like masturbated or something. And to me, I'm like, we don't talk about that, but they do. And then it's funny. Or they talk about like, weird crushes that they've had or weird quirks that they have. Those things that like, I would never tell anybody. If I was in a relationship, I would like hide in the other room to do whatever. I can't even think of anything, but like, and then on TikTok, everybody's talking about it. They're making jokes about things that, not making fun of it, but talking about the stuff that I relate to, like things that I experienced growing up in a Catholic church that were like embarrassingly not supposed to look like be 13 years old and like look at Jesus half naked, kind of hot. Like that's not supposed to happen. And yet there are people on TikTok who are comfortable admitting that. And it doesn't make us weird, and it doesn't make us bad people. It just makes us human, and it makes us realize that all those weird things that we think about, that we think is only us, that we think are so embarrassing, don't have to be. And once again, we're united. That's really important. So yeah, I love TikTok for that.
Of course. And I love that so much. And last night I was also on TikTok, and I completely agree with what you say, because it's almost as if who created this like saying or this like boundary of what you can and cannot say and what you can and cannot share, and it just like you were saying, all those things that are taboo or whatever, or forbidden to speak about, how do I say it? Like I guess it's my generation, Gen Z, it's like the barrier is kind of being broken, and I really love that, and I love what you say, because like I feel like, of course, I wasn't here 20 years ago, but I feel like in 20 years ago, just like you said, you would have to ask someone. And not only would you probably be uncomfortable asking someone, but they would probably be uncomfortable answering it as well. Yeah. And
ago, I was 17, and sometimes to my detriment, I'm an open book. I have to be very careful with that on stage. But I did talk about this stuff, but it was with my friends, you know, and we laughed about things, and we still do. And these are my best girlfriends and some of my best guy friends too. Stuff that we would never admit to anybody else, but we talk about with each other that, like, I don't understand why some things are considered taboo or weird when everybody does it. And actually, if we talked about it, we could probably come to terms with some things, or, you know, do it better, like to not hurt ourselves with the things that we think that could turn dark, but don't, because we realize everybody else has it too. And other people can say, oh yeah, I thought that. So, you know, as a Gen Z or yourself, you guys are doing a really good job of making the world a better place.
Thank you so much. I guess but thank you for saying that. Yes, of course. And, you know, speaking of, like, you know, all of these moments of, you know, being happy or you know, accomplishing something, I wanted to also ask you, do you feel proud of yourself right now in this moment? Are you proud of who you are?
That's a very interesting question. Overall, yes, because I feel like I've overcome a lot. I'm at a point where I can look back at former selves and feel sympathy, empathy for those me's and love them and not judge them, and realize how much I've learned from them. I'm proud of the fact that I have accomplished something that to a lot of people, I think, I mean, I don't really know what the general, I mean, I can't think of the word, like, what, I don't know how people see me as an artist, but I remember that there were artists that were opening for me when I was getting started who were a lot bigger names than I was then. I mean, but then I was becoming somebody that they were opening for me instead of me opening for them. And they had a song, and I remember thinking, God, that would just be like the worst thing that could possibly happen, is you're a one-hit wonder. And I know that even though I have had more than one song on the radio and more than one song that's done something for my career and my name, that I fall into that category to some people, which is a fate worse than death to some people. Young artists, they're like, oh, that'll never be me. But I think maybe because fame did always scare me, and money was never something that drove my work. I don't feel bad about having one thing that I'm known for. Sometimes I'm not even known for it. People know the song, don't really know who sings it or who wrote it. Yes. But it makes people feel better. And it could have been something different, you know? It could have been that I was known for a song that was fun but didn't really mean anything. Of course. And the fact that to the public, to strangers, my identity, as others see it, is connected to something healing, something that makes them feel better. And I did that. And so I do feel like that's a wonder to be able to accomplish that, because how many people are out there writing perfect songs that would do exactly the same thing Breathe did, and no one ever gets to hear them. They don't get the opportunities that I did because I was in the right place at the right time. Definitely. And I got to have that. I get to be a person that I hear a lot of stories. And sometimes, I mean, when I was young, it was too much talking about the mental health aspect of that. Being a teenager and listening to, I've heard everything, because people meet me after a show and shake my hand and say, your song got me through this or that. And it's, you know, I've heard everything. And also in terms of mental health, in order to survive that, which I wasn't, I mean, I use the word empath in a funny way where it's the only thing I can think of, even though empathy is really important. But there's this other thing where I don't think I'm the only person by any stretch who has this, but I feel other people's feelings and sometimes can't tell which are mine and which are theirs. So being a teenager and hearing the stories that I heard, I would lay in my bunk at night staring at the ceiling and just feeling for them. And I remember their faces. I remember their stories. And you can ask fans of mine, I haven't seen them in 15 years, and they come to a show and shake my hand, and I remember them. But I think it's because I remember how they feel to me, you know.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
How they feel. So I actually had a therapist that I've been seeing for 10 years now who finally taught me how to take in that kind of information as a therapist would, to be able to sympathize with somebody, have that empathy, but also have boundary, also have a safeguard so that I don't take it with me. Because I did, and I would if I wasn't careful. Now I hear something somebody's going through, I relate to it, and I just can't wait to see them thrive and be the person that I know they are, you know, that I know that I can relate to and maybe help them not feel alone. But I don't have to live their life anymore. And I had to be taught that. And I'm saying that because I would assume that a lot of people out there who suffer from depression or anxiety are that way too. It started when they were a kid, and just by the time you're in your late teens or early 20s, it's already like, you don't know what to do with it. By the time you're in your 30s, it's so heavy. So, you know, I think that that's really important. A therapist is really important. And actually, on the subject of anxiety too, we've talked about depression. I had panic attacks for 2 years, back to back. And it was when I left the label, didn't know who I was, having this existential crisis. I was a wife, but I didn't really know how to do that. I was 24 and wasn't ready to be a wife. I just wanted some stability. And I was married to an absolutely wonderful man, but I didn't know how to be I didn't know how to do it. And, you know, as far as us being right for each other or not, obviously we weren't, but I just couldn't stop with the anxiety because I knew there were things that weren't right, including I wasn't equipped to be somebody's person then. And I didn't really know who I was and really hadn't faced a lot of the things that had hurt me from when I was a kid. Didn't even know that I needed to face them. Didn't even remember a lot of it, which I don't know how well this is going to go over, but for a while, smoking pot is what helped, because for some reason, the effect that it had on me was to take me back to experiences that I'd had and give me every detail as if I was there, instead of the way that a memory changes as you get older. So I'm not saying go take drugs, but there, you know, that being able to access those memories was really helpful for me to be able to heal from them. So yeah, I mean, as far as being proud of myself now, I have stories of what anxiety did to me that I should tell you. I mean, if people are watching this looking for somebody to say something they've experienced, people will tell you that a panic attack lasts for 20 minutes, and that is bullshit, because it lasts for 20 minutes and then goes away, and you're on level like 12 of anxiety for a half hour, and then you have another panic attack and the blood rushes from your head and your legs get weak and your mouth gets dry and your heart feels like you're going to have a heart attack, and you're sure that you need to call the ambulance, but you know that that's also not really what you need. And then what happens from there is that you embarrass yourself, or I felt embarrassed because I had a panic attack at the gym. Never wanted to go back to the gym. It wasn't even because I was afraid people would think something of me, But my brain told me that if I went back to the gym, that's where panic attacks happen. And I didn't want to go back. Wow. And then it's a restaurant. And then it's a public restroom. And your world gets so small. That's called agoraphobia. Yeah. And it's a fear of fear, but it's a fear of leaving your little circle. But your circle gets so tiny. And for me, it really did. I didn't want to drive across. I mean, I grew up in LA. My folks are in LA, and I lived in the valley, and it was only 40 minutes to their house, but I didn't want to make that drive. I was scared. So I got very isolated. Yes. And it was getting on the right medication that helped that, and going through finding the right medication, which some of them did hurt more than they helped. Mm-hmm. But I have to say, to people that are experiencing that, there's probably something that you need to dig for, something that's telling you that there's a wild animal chasing you, or that you've been caught by something and you are stuck and you can't move. And it's probably something in your life that has made you feel that way. And it might not be a big deal to anybody else. Maybe somebody else could have the same experience and been fine, but you responded in a certain way that has affected you. And then, I've had embarrassing situations. I just told somebody this yesterday, and then I probably shouldn't. Whatever, it doesn't matter. We all go through weird stuff. But I once had a panic attack that was so bad that I was going through security at an airport. I was on my way to Italy, or should have been, and the idea of being stuck in a metal box, which I lived in a metal box. I have lived in a metal box for most of my life, tour bus, van, plane, but for some reason that time was not okay. And I freaked out at TSA, and I at the security, and I pulled all my stuff back, and I said, I'm getting out of here. And they're like, you know, they thought I was nuts. I thought I was nuts. And I didn't go. I mean, I went and I tried to catch my breath, and I called somebody to come pick me up. I missed a flight to Rome, and thought I was crazy. Yeah. But there were so many things that I hadn't addressed from when I was a kid, things that made me feel trapped in a metal box. Yeah. And I had to find those things and reframe them so that I did also just tell somebody this last night too. Some of it I can throw away. I don't need it anymore. And some of it becomes part of my superpower, Sure. I can take some of those things that hurt, and just like I do with a song, trying to turn hurt into something beautiful, I can turn hurt into something so powerful. Yes. That I'm not a victim. I'm a warrior. Yes. I can help. I can heal. I can participate, and somebody else can lean on me. Definitely. Until they're strong enough that I can lean on them. Definitely. So those things are really important, I think, to go through. A therapist helps. A good psychiatrist, if you need medication, really helps. That's a hard journey, but it's worth it when you finally find the right stuff and are able to have happy, normal days where you're not in bed and you're not freaking out. Mm-hmm. It's you miss out on a lot of life if you don't acknowledge that you don't feel okay and just keep living in that, or trying to numb it but not fix it.
Definitely. Of course. And I know with like the music industry, I know that can have a toll on someone's mental health. However, it can also be like inspirational in a way to express your how you feel, but then at the end of the day, it's still, there's a negative and a positive to almost everything. And I love the advice that you gave, and you gave such wonderful advice. And do you have any like final words of advice for people who are struggling with depression, anxiety, and are just looking for relief and looking for happiness or light at the end of the tunnel?
So I would say, what I wish somebody would have told me when I was a teenager was that all those things that I was struggling with, all those things I was feeling are not who I am. They're just what I've experienced. and that a lot of that hurtful stuff, a lot of those can't get out of bed because it hurts. Depression hurts. When you hear somebody say it's not a big deal, or, you know, you're being lazy, or you're just, you know, why are you so sad? That it's okay to tell somebody, and if you can't tell them, to tell yourself the truth. It hurts. My body hurts. This feeling, this thing I'm struggling with makes me physically hurt. And if I do get out of bed, I'm just going to crawl over to my closet and stare up at my clothes and try and figure out what to wear in order to get on my feet. And when people tell you, you know, wow, you sure shapeshift, acknowledge or admit or just be okay with the fact that you have to go be something in public. And once you're home, once you're safe, you don't have to keep that up anymore. Nobody gets to call you a chameleon. You're just a person, and a person who's experienced stuff that you can acknowledge, you can take seriously, even if somebody else doesn't. And you can fix it by talking about it with a professional, mostly.
Yes.
By talking about it with your friends, by doing whatever you have to do to actually heal yourself and make the situation as healthy as it can be. Don't numb, you know.
Of course.
You're falling in love isn't going to fix it. Drugs aren't going to fix it. I mean, the numbing kind. Shopping isn't going to fix it. Being famous isn't going to fix it. But you can. And not everybody needs medication. Not everybody needs the same thing. But there's so much available. And, you know, I know that this is a very cliche thing to say, but more than anything, you're not alone. And very likely, the very people that you listen to who tell you everything's going to be okay, or just breathe, are saying it because they needed to hear it.
Yeah.
So know that when you listen to those songs that make you feel better, it's because the person who wrote them needed to feel better too. The whole radio is telling you that you're not alone.
Yes.
I guess that's it.
Yeah. No, that was amazing. And thank you so much for joining me for this interview and being here. And it was so inspiring to hear your point of view and hear everything that you've been through. And again, thank you so much. And I really hope that everyone who's watching this, you know, they really feel that they're not alone. And that someone who, you know, may have the followers or the music or, you know, the money, the health, the happiness, all of the things that so many people strive to have or want to have, you know, they still struggle through the same things too. And thank you so much again. And I will definitely...
Of course.
Thank you. Yeah, and I will definitely link your social media down below for everyone. And thank you again so much.
I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
So happy to know that people like you are taking the initiative to try and make things a little bit better. So I'm happy to participate and honored that you would ask me. So thank you.
Of course, definitely.